Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Today we are going to discuss why the Steam Deck is still the best option when it comes to the portable PC landscape. As of recent, we have seen a lot of competitors start to show their heads and start to come into the same sort of landscape that the Steam Deck in a lot of ways created its own niche in. And I can honestly say, after observing the competition and after seeing a lot of what they bring to the table, I still to this day think that the Steam Deck is the ultimate and best option out of all the competitors. Now, what I'm going to start with is just kind of talk about what the competitors are doing, what the competition actually looks like for the Steam Deck, and then we'll kind of go into why I think the Steam Deck is still the best option. We'll start with the most recent announcement coming from Sony. They have announced that they are officially releasing what is essentially just a streaming tablet with PlayStation controllers on the sides, otherwise known as Project Q. This thing is looking to be a streaming device only. So not only will you really need to have a PS5 just from the looks of it, because they didn't actually go into a lot of detail, but from what I can surmise, it seems as though it's operating on a strictly cloud to system type of basis. It is possible that it's going to utilize the PlayStation Now feature, which I believe has been on multiple TVs at this point as well as PC, but to be honest, I've used that in the past and it's not very reliable, and to be honest, a lot of Sony's streaming capabilities are not very reliable when it comes to gaming, especially when you want a higher frame rate and better performance for the games you're playing. Although it didn't do well commercially, the PlayStation Vita was actually a really great handheld and laid a really good foundation for handhelds to come. The problem is Sony never actually went back and did anything with the concept, and they pretty much just buried the handhelds after that point. This is the first handheld they've actually shown off or even attempted since the PlayStation Vita, and I really don't know that it's going to be able to even come close to competing with the Steam Deck, especially in performance, features, or game library. Steam is just way too good and way too big at having a great library, and even though PlayStation has their own, a lot of those games have been popping up on PC, which makes having a PlayStation style mobile console not really as viable of an option as you may think. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see more information on this from Sony, both pricing and performance, but I really don't think this is going to even come close to being a competitor with the Steam Deck. The next competitor we're going to discuss is the Asus ROG Ally. Now, this has been making a lot of buzz because it is probably the most direct competitor to the Steam Deck. At first glance, it seems much higher end than the Steam Deck, but it's priced a lot more affordably than some of its higher competition, specifically the Neo 2 or the GPD Win 4. From what I can surmise, Asus's plan with this machine is to basically make a stronger Steam Deck, but come in under the higher end portable PCs in the same market. I will say spec-wise right off the bat, this thing is definitely more powerful than the Steam Deck. However, it does come with about a $300 increase in price. From everything I've been able to see on this device, it definitely appears to be running at a much higher fidelity than the Steam Deck itself. It's built with obviously higher end components, and it's definitely trying to go for a more affordable, more powerful version of the Steam Deck. However, when you consider that the Steam Deck comes in at only $400 and this thing starts at $700, it becomes a very tough juggling act on whether or not it's worth it for that extra performance. For me personally, the reason why I still hold that I think the Steam Deck is the better option is one, not only the price to performance, but also the fact that it actually has trackpads built in. Those don't seem as useful as you would think until you are trying to operate the machine in desktop only mode. It becomes extremely handy and really nice to be able to just use the trackpads as you would a normal mouse. And even though it's a very small nitpick, it is a very handy feature to have. I actually think it's kind of strange that they didn't include any kind of feature like this. You still have gyro and all of the motion control of the system, but you don't actually have the trackpad. So it's a weird sort of trade-off, but the price to performance, like I mentioned earlier, is very impressive considering the Steam Deck's price. I also think another feather in the Steam Deck's cap, so to speak, is the fact that it is very, very simple for somebody who is just wanting to get a device to be able to pick up and play games and be able to just have that experience be extremely simple. Much in the way that Nintendo Switch is popular for its simplicity, so too is the Steam Deck for being able to just buy the system outright and then have Steam literally right there on your device. One thing I will give the ROG Ally is the fact that it does have a little bit more compatibility option out of the box, and by that I mean you don't have to do as much tweaking to it to get things to work like Xbox Game Pass or some of the better streaming options. But I think ultimately, for simplicity's sake, I think the Steam Deck actually has a pretty nice format. The last competitor I want to touch on seems to be maybe the most obvious, and it actually is sort of before the other two competitors, and that is the Nintendo Switch. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Rice, have you lost it? Why in the world are we talking about the Nintendo Switch in the same breath as the Steam Deck? But I think there is something to be said about the simplicity of the Switch and the fact that a normal consumer can walk into a store, can see the Switch on display, and can buy it right there, no questions asked. Much like the name Valve means a lot to a lot of people, so too does Nintendo mean a lot to a lot of people. People can go into the store and say, hey, I'm going to pick up a Switch with both Mario, Zelda, and Kirby, and we're going to take it home, and everybody can play it. As much as I understand the appeal of the Switch, and as much as I totally think that it has a justified place in the portable handheld market, my biggest gripe with the Nintendo Switch, even when it came out, is the fact that it is vastly underpowered compared to its competitors. And the Steam Deck is just hands down, for the money, the better option when it comes to getting a more powerful portable handheld. Now, I used to kind of put the Steam Deck in its own category outside of the Switch, but honestly, since I've sort of messed around with some emulation on the system and I actually finally got Yuzu up and running, I can confidently say that I personally would rather have my Switch games running on the Steam Deck than I would a Nintendo Switch. Especially when you compare the fact that buying a Nintendo Switch for $300 or spending $100 more to get the Steam Deck allows you the same experience but more powerful, plus the inclusion of all of the Steam library. It really kind of makes it a no-brainer for me personally to recommend a Steam Deck above a Nintendo Switch. Now, of course, you do want to consider the fact that are you okay with doing a little bit of tinkering to get this stuff running on the Steam Deck? I won't pretend that it's not going to be a super simple process, but considering that even somebody like me who loves tech and is pretty tech savvy for the most part, I did kind of struggle a little bit just in the beginning with trying to figure out how to do it, since I had never really messed with emulation too much. But honestly, a couple quick Google searches and YouTube videos later, and I had the thing running and no problem. Now, if you're somebody who is used to Nintendo's products, you may be saying, well, what about the motion controls that they put in their games? What about some of the more different compatibility options? Thankfully, the Steam Deck actually does recognize Nintendo Switch Pro controllers, Joy-Cons, and it has built-in gyro, so if you're playing portably, you can still get that sort of Nintendo-styled experience without the hassle of having to go and buy Nintendo products. Now, you may be wondering what I mean by the hassle of Nintendo products, but one thing I've noticed over the last few years is the fact that Nintendo is very cheap with the way they make their products, specifically the Joy-Cons, and then also just some of the accessories that actually you use for the Nintendo Switch. One thing I can confidently say is I've never had stick drift when it comes to the Steam Deck, whereas I can't say the same thing about a Joy-Con. The overall feel of the Steam Deck is just extremely more hefty, and it feels way more put together than a Nintendo Switch. I also like the fact that it is a little bit bigger and it feels better in the hands to hold than a Nintendo Switch. If the Nintendo Switch kind of feels cheap or plasticky or like a Fisher-Price toy, the Steam Deck is its Apple alternative with a more premium feel. Now, obviously, when we're talking about kids and we're talking about the idea of having something that is more sturdy, I can kind of understand why somebody might want to go for the Nintendo Switch since it is more simple. And for parents who don't know how to tinker, for people who are just wanting to get their kids something to, have as an introduction to video games, or maybe just something portable like an iPad or something of that nature, then honestly, the Steam Deck is not for them. But if you do know how to do even a little bit of tinkering with PC stuff, it's worth actually being able to put all those Nintendo games on a Steam Deck for your child. And also the Steam library and how cheap all the digital games are, it might be worth it just to save you money in the long run. On average, I don't normally buy a game unless it's about 80 or 90% off for most of the games I buy through Steam. Any game I ever want, I normally go to CD key sites like Aniba or G2A, or I just wait for Steam sales. I have saved way more money buying my games through Steam than I've ever had through buying my games through Nintendo. And if I get the added option of better performance, I will definitely take that. So in my eyes, the Steam Deck is a clear winner above these other competitions. I just don't see, any of the streaming devices really competing just for the fact that they're streaming devices. The Nintendo Switch, I think, is just really outdated. Plus, Nintendo is working on a newer system, so we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. And then, honestly, just for the price to performance, I think it definitely outbeats something like the ROG Ally. Of course, keep in mind, I'm not telling you what to buy. If you think that any of these devices are going to do better for you than a Steam Deck, totally fine, but personally, these are my opinions only. If you made it this far, thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate the support. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If not, feel free to give it a thumbs down, no problem. As well, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm most likely known for making Steam Deck videos, but I also do like making a bunch of videos regarding newer video game releases, as well as horror movies and certain movie reviews, so please keep a lookout for those projects in the future. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you all have a great day and stay safe out there.